All right, here we are, the local law enforcement hour with your favorite sheriff, John Myers. What's his name? I can't ever think of his name. He didn't show. Blake Grooms, Captain Blake Grooms. He's out on the DL anyway. I talked to him earlier, and he said, "You're not gonna believe what happened to me." And I said, "What?" He said, "Blowed my other knee out." I said, "How do you blow your other knee out?" He said, "It just happened." So he's out on the DL. He's got to get an MRI today. So I got two of my top operatives sitting in today. You gotta keep your face straight when I say that. I got my sergeant over CID, Garrett Brown.
Yes, sir.
And one of our veteran. Is that a good word? Can I go with veteran?
Yeah, that's better than ancient.
Veteran investigators, Jason Deal. That's Deal, right?
Yes,
not like Dill Pickle, but Deal like it's a good deal.
Yes, sir.
No relation to Jack Davis.
None, even though I look just like him.
We were just talking about that. I showed you that picture of me and him Saturday at the fireworks show.
You can't convince me that he's not Jack Davis.
I know and did y'all know that Jack's dad was sheriff?
When was that?
You didn't know that? So, and I'm wanting to say it's in the 50s. Hang on, I got a picture. You're not going to believe it. You think this guy couldn't look any more like his dad? Bear with me.
Until I showed up.
You know when you walk in the lobby and there's the picture of all the sheriffs that has been in Lawrence County on the wall.
Yes.
Well, I got a picture of that picture somewhere on my phone, and I may have to dig it out later because I got like 3 million pictures on there. But anyway, it's a younger version of Jack Davis. If you could take Jack Davis and take like 40 years off of him, that's what this guy looks like. And Arnold, no, I don't want to misquote it. There's a couple of Davises that were sheriffs, but I can't remember if his was Arnold. I know there was an Arnold Davis, but there was another Davis. There was Arnold Davis and a Sammy Davis. I remember Sammy Davis because he was the last Republican sheriff that this county's had, and that was in 1952. But I think Jack's dad was Arnold Davis. But if that's not right, don't crucify me. But anyway, it was a long time ago.
Yeah, that was a long time.
But yeah, so Saturday night I called him up and I said, "Hey, you want to go to the fireworks show? I'll give you a ride." So I went over there and picked him up where he lives, and we sat over there in the side by side and watched the show. But anyway, he's a lot of fun, and you do look a lot like him. You could pass for his
Yeah, some people have thought
younger brother,
I was his family.
nephew from out of town.
Yes,
just
sir.
got out of prison.
Yep, that's me.
Yeah, speaking of the fireworks, they were good this year.
Yeah, they said that all right, so I got to tell you this story. So we was around back where everybody was at, where they've got them all lined up. And that's the first time I've ever been that close to a lot of fireworks going on. I had it in my mind, a fireworks show had a guy running around with a butane lighter lighting fuses on stuff. That was our fireworks show. But it's all in trailers. It's all mounted, or if it's not in a trailer, it's grouped together on the ground, and then it's wired to a remote system, and then it's all tied together with a handheld remote.
Oh wow!
And so the wiring system that they've got tells which one to fire, so it's all sequenced, and he just goes through there and he sets it up, and it's kind of like hit and play, and they start going off. But they fire one that's about that tall and about that big around 5 minutes before the show starts to give everybody the 5-minute warning that in 5 minutes it's going to start. Right. So he asked me if I wanted to do it. I said, "Yeah, I'll do it. I'll fire the first one off." So he shows it to me, and it's about this tall and about that big around. And I mean, that's normal I shot my cousin with one of them when I was a kid one time, It was the same time I shoved a Roman candle down his cargo pocket and lit it. But anyway, so it's got a wire about 8 foot long, just a little 2-lead wire, and you take a 9-volt battery. And you hold one lead on one side of the 9-volt battery, and all you do is touch it to the other one, and it fires. So Jack's got my phone, right? And I said, "Here, record it, Jack." So he's got my phone videoing me, and I'm standing there, and I've already got the one lead on there, and it's about like 10, 12 seconds. So they do a countdown, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I say, happy 4th of July. Well, I bump it. As soon as I bump it, boom, it launches that, whatever it's called.
And
And
you
that,
call them what, mortars?
Artillery shell.
yeah, artillery shell or mortar or whatever in there, and it goes off. Well, we get in the side by side and we go back up onto the flagpole by the football field to watch the show. And I get my phone and I'm looking at it. And he was videoing me. And when he was videoing me, I guess he had his finger right there at the button. And when it went off, it spooked him and he bumped it, and we never even saw it. He got the countdown all the way up to where I say, Happy 4th of July, and then it goes off. So, yeah, he'll watch this, and his family will watch this, and they'll give him a hard time. But that was a good show. It was a lot of fun. Had a pretty good turnout, and kids everywhere.
Yeah, I think they always put on a good show.
No, they do. They do.
It's a 20-minute show, and they said next time it's going to be even bigger. They're going to keep growing it every year.
Kick
And
it up to an hour.
I didn't know Dick, the city manager, did all that. They got their pyro license certification. They do every bit of it. Yeah, it's pretty good. They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Let's talk about CID. Let's talk about criminal investigation.
Let's do it.
So, CID is one of the parts of the sheriff's office.
Yes.
We have CID, we have the SRO program, we have courthouse security, we have patrol, we have the jail, and CID. Every case that is generated goes through y'all, right?
It does. It does.
So let's walk us through, and when we get a call for service, what happens if somebody calls and says, "Hey, I just went out to my outbuilding and somebody stole my new Kubota zero turn."
Sure. So if we get a call for service, the responding deputy will go to the scene and take a report. Depending on what evidence they have at the scene, if they have any suspects, if they have any leads, it all depends on what evidence is available to the deputy that responds. If they have enough evidence, they might be able to work the case themselves, might be able to find out who the suspect is. They might already have a suspect and can kind of follow up with that. If they don't, normally a report is taken. A report's taken regardless, but then the report is sent to us. Once it is sent to CID, we sit down every morning and we go over the reports that were made the day before, and then go over those reports. And from there, we go through what's called assignability. And what that is is there enough evidence? Do we have suspects in this case? Do we have a witness? There's a lot of elements to what is called assignability. And then from that, it kind of tells us how likely we are to solve this case, but that doesn't really affect the outcome of me assigning a case to an investigator. So after I do kind of a quick assignability, I'll then give it to an investigator who will track down leads, track down suspects, and follow the case until it is finished.
So when you say assignability, let's talk about that, because I get asked a lot out in the community about recovered property. For me, recovering somebody's stolen property is hands down one of the coolest parts of my job. When I get to go back to Joe Victim that had something stolen from them months or years prior, and I get to call them up and say, "Hey, I got some good news for you. I know it's been a while, but we recovered your tractor. Right. We recovered a tractor for a guy up on Henryville Road my first year or two in office." So when you get to make that phone call, that's the best thing ever.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
So do we have currently right now somebody assigned to take nothing but domestic violence cases?
As a criminal investigator, we don't have anyone signed specifically to domestic violence. We are a smaller department within Tennessee, and with that being, we've got 5 criminal investigators total. And with having 5 criminal investigators, it's kind of hard to have an assigned investigator for each type of crime. So every investigator, when they're given a report, the report could be completely different from what they get the day before. They could have a vandalism report one day, and then the next day they're working a homicide. So we don't have purely cases that are assigned to a certain.
Are some investigators more suited for different types of
They
investigations?
They are, and that's something that you kind of just learn on the job.
What let's talk about investigator deal. What would be something you would assign investigator deal?
Pretty much everything.
Yeah. If it's a case, I'll give it to Deal.
Yep, that's
so,
pretty much it. Because my name's the shortest, right on the top.
Is that what it is?
Yes,
And that's what it is. I don't like to write a lot, so his name is very short, so it's just easy to write that name. But no, being serious,
But we do have 2 investigators that are assigned to work nothing but drugs,
Correct.
narcotics. The 5 plus you work everything from child neglect to a mailbox somebody's mailbox being vandalized. It's across the spectrum, right?
it is.
And we don't pick and choose. I mean, I guess we kind of pick and choose who we assign cases to, but at the same time, each crime that comes through there it's just as important as the other. Your mailbox being vandalized is just as important as your $20,000 tractor being stolen.
absolutely.
So when you get a case assigned to you, what's your first step?
My first step is I read over the case to make sure that there's no missing information. If it's something like a mailbox, what would be the value of it? If they heard anything, as far as I heard a car that was, had a loud muffler. My next step would be to contact the person, the victim, and make sure that the information is correct, and then go around the area and see if anybody else heard or might have had a mailbox smashed. A lot of times people will say, it was only a $20 mailbox. I'm not going to bother, calling this in. It's just a waste of time. But it's, in their view, it's a waste of time. But in our view, it's not, because if we have 5 different mailboxes that got smashed and only one called in, we're missing a whole bunch of information from those other 4 people. I mean, they could have had some knowledge into, a color of a car, or maybe last summer the same thing happened to me, and it was this person, but we never called anybody. So the more people that get involved, and you don't have to press charges, you can just call us up and say, I have information. You don't have, if you don't want a report taken, that's really up to you. But we would like the information in regards to what you have, the knowledge you have, because I'm not from around here, so I don't really know a lot of people. So I don't know enough that I can say.
We picked up on that with his accent,
Yeah.
didn't we? Just a little bit.
I think
I mean, it's one of those things. I don't, you guys know who, you guys have been around here, so you guys know who was most likely to smash a mailbox.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. So, if I can get some more information, it'll lead me down the right road on who's responsible for it, and we can squash that.
Now, you've been doing this a while. You've done this for a while in what state?
New York.
New York.
Yes, sir.
And so, give me one case that you solved that sticks out in your mind. Doesn't have to be here. Give me a unique case, because I've got one in my mind that I solved a long time ago when I was working as a young investigator.
There's a few pretty good ones. I think the most serious one that comes to mind is I had an individual that burned his whole family up in a house fire.
Mm-hmm.
4 children and his significant other.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the only one to survive in a house that had no power, no heating, no anything.
Mm-hmm.
And it took about a year. We had an idea that he was the prime suspect. went through all the stages and went through all the physical exams and laboratory results and everything. And it took a year, and he wound up being convicted.
Now, was there one thing as far as the evidence goes that solved it, or was it a combination
It was
of?
a combination, but the one thing that pointed us to him was when he went to the hospital to be checked for smoke inhalation. He flushed his underwear down the toilet.
At the hospital?
Yes. He has to use the bathroom. They let him go in the bathroom, and he flushed his underwear down the toilet. And come to find out, his underwear was soaked with kerosene because the driver's seat of his car was soaked with kerosene.
Oh, yeah.
So he wanted to get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
So he didn't smell like kerosene in the ER.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what he used after we had significant pour patterns through the house and lit it on fire. That's the accelerant he used for his crime.
So that's hard to deny. Oh, it's hard to explain why you would try to flush your underwear at the hospital.
That's correct.
And why there was kerosene all over your underwear.
Yeah.
Somebody don't just do that, unless there's some kind of
So,
evidence.
I mean, it was very in depth. It took a long time. A lot of people didn't think that we were going to solve it and have enough to prosecute. And the wheels of justice do turn, but sometimes they turn slowly. You know, the easiest things I can think of is, and it's nice to be in a small department because everybody knows everybody. So like get back to the mailbox, like the mailbox thing, just because you made a report 2 years ago that your mailbox got smashed, but we didn't know who did it then. If there's another set of mailboxes getting smashed the summer after that, and we put 2 to 2 together because we know that personally in our minds remember that, Joe Smith had a mailbox smashed on this road last year. Now we got 3 others.
Mm-hmm.
We can tie that in and build a better case on the people that we catch.
Yeah, and that building a case, I think, is probably what victims and victims' families. I think that's the hardest part that they have dealing with us in investigations, is building the case.
It is.
Yes.
And it takes a while. It's like you said. It doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
And I tell people all the time, just be patient with us. We're working on it.
And
You
it's-
probably said that more times than I've got fingers and toes,
I have,
just in the past week,
I
right?
have. And it's not like TV. It's not, the cool cop
Oh,
shows. you watch
CSI?
on
Yeah.
TV.
Right. Nobody ever lives. The bad guys never live at the address that's on their driver's license because they're trying to stay one step ahead of the law
Right.
or, the court system.
And you don't
or
get a
whatever.
confession the first time you talk
Don't
to
get a
them.
confession the first time you talk. to them.
What was that show? The Shield. Remember The Shield?
Shield, yeah.
How easy they got confessions out of people. I mean, they would just walk in and sit down, and they would just spill their guts
Yes.
about everything.
Just look at them.
Now that does happen, but that's pretty rare.
Not very often.
Not very often. It's pretty rare to have someone come in and actually have a conscience and say, I did this and I shouldn't have done it.
Mm-hmm.
Normally, once you start rationalizing with people and explaining to them the situation that the victim's in, they start to have some emotion, and it builds a little bit better rapport with them. And a lot of times they'll tell you the whole story. Sometimes they'll tell you a part of the story. Sometimes they'll tell you one thing that happened that nobody else knew happened, and so in your head that you have the right person.
Exactly.
So
What was you about to say?
sorry.
He's going to tell me that I'm lying, but Deal is a people person.
Oh, I know that.
He
Yeah.
is.
No. He's good. He's good at his craft. What was the case that we were working with Lewis County and we went to the house? Oh, it was the guy that was breaking into the house in Summertown,
Yes, sir. He stole
stealing
all the
guns.
weapons.
And he was sneaking in late at night while the homeowner was asleep. And they set up a game trail camera in the house and got pictures of him, and we was able to identify him. And then when we went to his house, I remember you sat out in the car with him, and
Yes.
we were able to recover.
We have recovered all of them.
Yeah.
All of his weapons, and some of them were heirlooms from his grandfather, and this individual wasn't, I think, in his late 70s, early 80s. So you're talking 1800s weapons that were worth quite a bit of money.
Yeah.
We were able to recover every single one of them.
Yeah. That's that don't always work out like that.
Not always.
They get rid of them real quick, and that's one of the worst parts about the job is when you're talking to a victim and you have to tell them the likelihood of us recovering this property is not that good. I'm not saying, and I've had this conversation with them in the past. It's not that good. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The best chance is that we find this in a search warrant in some drug dealer's house, at some point, because the majority of our thefts, when it comes to guns and jewelry and antiques and that kind of stuff, wind up at Joe drug dealer's house at some point.
They do, and one of the big reasons for that is a lot of criminal cases tie into drug cases. For one, they're stealing things to either sell or pawn off so that they can get money to buy the drugs, or they're stealing it and storing it at someone's house because they want it, and they'll offer that in exchange for drugs.
How much stolen property are we still recovering at pawn shops, would you guess? I mean, is it that much? Because I know we get pawn. A lot of people don't know that the pawn shops have to provide us with pawn tickets.
They do.
Every week, right? Or every
day.
Every day.
Every day. So anytime is it when they buy or pawn, or both?
Everything.
I believe it's both.
It is both.
Okay.
It's, buy, pawn, and some shops give us
sell.
what they sell. I don't think that is by law. They have to do that. But
Right.
A lot of shops do.
Yeah, they do, but I didn't know if it's every transaction,
Yes.
if it's every piece of property that moves through the pawn shop, or if it's just.
I think it's just whatever they bring in.
They bring in.
Yeah.
And
It's just
that-
what they bring in, no matter what the terms are. If they're getting a loan on it, if they're pawning it, if they're actually selling it.
And those go in a database, right?
Yes. Yes, we have that on our report management system at the sheriff's office.
Mm-hmm.
We have someone at the sheriff's office that puts in every single pawn ticket that is sent to us, and then us as investigators, once that's put in our system, we can pull up the pawn tickets to whatever pawn shop it was either pawned or sold at.
Gotcha. What about you, Garrett? What's one of your more memorable investigations? Something unique that stands out.
So it'd probably be one of my first bigger cases that I worked when I moved over to CID back in 2018. It was a overdose, and through the investigation of that, found the messages on his phone where he had bought the drugs that he ended up overdosing on.
Now, was this an overdose death?
Overdose death, yes. Okay. And looking through his phone, were able to track down some suspects. Got some more information from the autopsy results on exactly what he had overdosed on. And, that lined up with what he was buying, where we found the records on his phone. And then that led into some undercover buys with different agencies, including the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. After several undercover buys, we had narrowed it down to 2 suspects, took them into custody, and it turned out that they were both involved in selling drugs to him, the exact same drugs that he overdosed on, and ended up getting a double homicide conviction out of it.
Nice. So that's the law, right? That's how the law reads. If you knowingly sell fentanyl to an individual and they overdose and die, that's second-degree murder, right?
It is.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we talked about that once on the show. I think we went over that just a little bit. So that's good. I mean, that's good news.
It definitely is.
It's definitely good news for the victims.
Let's talk confessions. I'm sure both y'all have been through Reed interview and interrogation.
I've been through it a number of times.
Yeah,
I haven't been through Reed, but I've been through several interview and interrogation classes.
I got you. So how important is a confession when you're dealing with, say, a felony case, either some kind of let's talk about a dangerous felony case.
Oh, it's extremely important. I mean, you're getting a confession or an admission from your suspect. that speaks volumes when you go to court on it. I mean, it's kind of hard to backtrack from a confession.
Has either one of y'all ever lost a case because the confession was thrown out?
No,
I have not.
no, I have not.
Has to be free and voluntary, right?
Absolutely.
That's something that I talk to people about. It's just like consent. It has to be free and voluntary.
Correct.
So you can't coerce them deal. I mean, as
No.
much as you probably would like to.
Yeah. There's sometimes.
Can't waterboard them.
There
We
are
can't.
sometimes-
Yeah, we can't do any of that stuff. You know, we got to be nice.
Yes.
But and in my mind, and I always refer to my heyday is when I worked the interstate for the task force. By the way, I got to mention Bill Doley real quick. We lost a great drug agent last week. Well, I guess it was a week from this past Saturday is when I got the call that he had passed away. But Bill Doley was he was a unique individual, man, and he was such a good dude. I worked with him in the 90s when I started in drug enforcement, and I've got 1,000 stories about him. You know, he was just really good at that job, and he done it for 40 years, I guess. I think he was retiring. It's the saddest part of the story is that he was retiring in December.
Yeah.
You know, so
he
he-
had big plans.
Yeah, he was almost there.
And
He did.
Yeah, he was almost there, and but man, I tell you what, he was such a good guy, and he was really good at what he did.
He was. He was. I remember the first time I met him. So I was on patrol, and we had got a call of a meth lab in the woods. So me and my sergeant at the time ended up going to the woods from the location and ended up finding it. And we sent up word to the drug task force and was just waiting around. Several other deputies showed up, and then narcotics investigators with sheriff's office showed up. Well, about 20 minutes later, this lifted, unmarked truck comes pulling down this path in the middle of the woods, and then out jumps this guy with long hair, a beard, a t-shirt,
About
shorts,
5'5".
about 5'5", and I was so confused when he just came walking all up on, and what are you doing here? And he could tell that I had no idea who he was. So he starts fumbling around in his pockets and he pulls out his wallet and he's fumbling through his wallet and then he finally finds his badge and holds it up. And I was like, oh okay.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I've ever saw him wear a gun.
I don't think
I don't think I've ever seen him wear pants. He's always wearing
Always
shorts.
shorts.
That's it.
Always shorts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Always shorts.
Yeah, he didn't look any different. That when I went to the funeral visitation, there was some pictures on there when he was young and didn't have a beard and long hair, and nobody would recognize him. I don't think anybody would have recognized him because he just that was his look,
Yeah. That
you know,
was.
that he kept the whole time. But for me, getting that confession was the best 30 seconds ever. I mean, you can't. I don't know what you compare it to, because when you're talking to this guy or gal or whoever, and you're asking them questions and you're seeing the indicators, you know, that they're being dishonest, and then you move into from the interview mode to the interrogation mode, and you move in on them, and you get in their distance, you get in their personal space, and you really start to work hard on them, and you tell them that you know they're lying, and you start to see the anxiety kick in, and they start to break down. And for me, when you're right there at that point, and you know you got them, and you know they're breaking, and they can't take it anymore. That they don't have the physical ability to do it now because the anxiety is just through the roof, and you're waiting on them, and then they fess up.
Yeah.
They tell it all. And it's like you got to leave the room and fist pump. I mean, that was the best. That 30 seconds of leading right up
Yeah.
to when it's almost. I guess maybe you compare it to shooting a a big buck or something. You know, you're watching it walk in, and you're waiting on that shot, and you're waiting on that shot, and finally you get that shot, and you take. I don't know. That's the only thing I guess I can compare it to. But
Yeah, no, I mean that it makes sense. For one, you've been working on this case. I mean, it doesn't matter how long you worked on it. You could be working on it for a week or 3 years. It's finishing that case and getting the closure for the victim, no matter what the actual crime was. You're solving a case. You're trying your best with. I mean, that's what we're here for, is to make things right in the eyes of the law, because the law was broken, and just getting that confession, like you said, it feels great.
yeah, especially when you have all the circumstantial evidence and all the fingers are pointing towards this person, and you know in your gut they did it, and they're still saying they didn't, but then you trip them up, and then you see them start to break, and you start seeing their story fall apart, and you know it's coming. You can tell. I mean, you've probably seen it more than anybody. You know it's about to come out of their mouth.
Yep. And it's tough just sitting there waiting for it to come out too. I mean, like, you want to just, like,
Just say it already.
yeah, just say it.
Yeah.
That's I mean, the suspects. That's the hardest part is, you did it. I know you did it. Everybody knows you did it. Just tell me.
Yeah.
And you're waiting, and just,
Yeah.
we have a lot of things that we do to build up to that, as everybody here knows. But it's that final thing when you're just like,
Yeah, we can't give up our interview and interrogation questions. We can't put that out there. People watch TV; they see enough of.
I will say in this, it actually is in the interest of the guy the guy or gal that is being interviewed to tell the truth, because, and I firmly believe this, quite honestly. My job is to make my sergeant happy, to make the sheriff happy, to make the district attorney happy, to make the court happy, and to make the suspect happy. Now, if that's through honesty and cooperation, where we can talk about this and get it done and over with, and have a reason on why this happened, they're better off in court.
Sure, they are. Yeah.
Rather than, because nobody wants to help someone who doesn't want to help themselves. So you sit there and say, no, we got a video of you doing it.
Yeah.
And you still go to court and go, no, that's not me. They're going to say, well, you know what? I think we're going to have to, give this a little bit more thought on what we're going to do with you, since you just aren't willing to, fess up to what you've done. So yeah, it's a high to get the confession. But just for, everybody involved that might be watching this, but it's also in everybody's best interest to just come out with the truth, because there's usually a reason behind it. I've always said, like burglaries usually wind up with someone trying to buy drugs. Now, if we just throw him in jail and say good riddance, when he gets out of jail, he's going right back to burglary. But if he says, no, the reason I'm doing this is because I'm addicted to heroin, I'm addicted to cocaine. Well, while he's in, serving his time, if he gets some rehabilitation services, when he comes out, maybe he's not going to go back to the drug life. And that's one less burglar off our streets, which makes the sheriff happy, because our stats go down. Believe it or not, he likes our stats to be lower. Makes my boss happy, that we don't have to deal with this guy again. He's on the straight and narrow, and his next victim won't be his next victim, because it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I probably would conducted, I don't know, on average 3 to 5 roadside interviews every day working the interstate, and getting that person to confess to having drugs or something illegal in the vehicle without me actually having to go up there and find it myself. I don't know. It was like the ultimate high for me back then. When you would ask them, is there anything illegal in the vehicle? No, there ain't nothing illegal in my vehicle. Okay. And then you start moving in on them, and then you can tell that it's coming. And I don't know. I could talk about it for days.
Or when they go, not to my knowledge.
And not to my knowledge.
In that car? There were so many indicators. I mean, some of the indicators, and I think I've probably told this story before on this show, but it was a roadside interview I was having with this guy. And as soon, you pretty much know if you've got something suspect going on in 30 seconds, no matter what the situation is. in 30 seconds you can kind of tell if something's not adding up, and it worked the same on the interstate. But anyway, I got this guy out, and I removed him from the vehicle, got him out of his comfort zone. That's the reason why we had him exit the vehicle, and got him out of his comfort zone. Got him at the back of the car, and was talking to him, and all the indicators was there that he had something illegal in the vehicle, and the passenger, they had the conflicting stories, and all the indicators just kept stacking up and stacking up. So I remember talking to this guy, and I leaned in and I got in his space, how you're taught to kind of move in and get in their personal space and get them a little bit more uncomfortable. And I said, man, this isn't my first day out here. I know there's something going on. You need to just go on ahead and tell me. And he was a little reluctant at first, and I just kept moving in. I said, it's all right, it's all right if you tell me, but I know. And so he does, and he tells me, and it's nothing illegal in the vehicle. It turned out the guy was with his lover, the other dude in the vehicle, and they were both married, and neither one of them wanted to be found out by their families that they had hooked up.
Wow, okay.
That would make sense.
But the indicators were the same.
Right.
Sure.
I mean, they were all the same.
They're doing something they're not supposed to be
Exactly. He
doing.
was hiding something.
Yes.
It just wasn't something illegal.
Yes, and then he starts telling me the whole story, and then I'm to the point now where I don't need to know all this now, okay? I thought you had something illegal in your vehicle.
Right.
Sorry for the intrusion. But yeah, it works. It works. Let's talk about cell phones and how important it is using cell phones, and how we are able to solve cases with cell phones.
Sure. So
I tell people all the time, investigations are a lot easier, but they're a little bit harder, but they're a lot easier to solve than what they used to be. You think that's accurate? Just the technology that we have now?
I think they're easier to solve, but they're a little more tedious because of the paperwork now involved with like a cell phone or a bank account or an app.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they're definitely easier to solve.
Oh,
No
yeah,
doubt.
they're easier to solve because this is everybody's lifeline now.
Mm-hmm.
Everything about a person is on this little rectangle that they carry in their pocket. Their bank, everybody they talk to, their location, if they have their location data turned on. I mean, your life is on this.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, it does make it a little easier to solve a case with cell phone data. But like you said, it's a little more tedious because to get to that data, there's a whole lot of paperwork you got to do. Search warrants, judicial subpoenas. You have to have
How
your
cooperative? How cooperative are the social media sites? Not
It really
very.
depen-
I've heard different.
So it depends on the social media site. Facebook, Snapchat. I wouldn't consider this social media, but it's very paramount in our investigations. But Cash App, those three, they're pretty cooperative if we provide them the correct paperwork.
Gotcha.
I haven't had a lot to do with, I don't know what it's called now, X or Twitter. Haven't really subpoenaed much from that. It's usually those three are the main three that we go through: Facebook, Snapchat, and Cash App.
Gotcha. Does anybody deal in cash anymore? I mean, is it all go through Venmo and
really.
Cash App
People
and
his age.
Yeah, people my age, yeah.
they barter? They're still bartering,
Still-
trading
yeah.
chickens,
Trade goats.
Yeah.
sack of potatoes.
I just got 2 steaks for, a bushel of corn.
Well, I talk about having the ability now. 30 years ago, when I was a young investigator, if I wanted to know what somebody's house looked like, say they lived off the road, they had a long driveway, we would have to call the guy down here at the airport to get in his Cessna and fly over and snap aerial pictures. It's instantaneous now.
Yeah.
Now you can punch it in and you can see the aerial image of their house and get the roadside image of their house.
If they've got their cars parked in the driveway,
Mm-hmm.
you got what they're driving.
How far along you think we're from having real-time satellite imagery for law enforcement?
Law enforcement does have it. It's expensive. And it's usually federal agencies or the bigger agencies like LAPD, NYPD, those bigger agencies that have access to that. It is available, but it is extremely expensive to utilize.
I think it's going to be 4 or 5 years before the price comes down so that everybody can afford to use it. Especially little departments, smaller departments, not little, but smaller departments that don't have the budget of like Metro Nashville or New York City PD or LAPD. I think once the cost comes down, it's just going to spread out, and it'll be amazing. It'll be amazing.
Yeah, I've been saying that for a while. I think it's coming. I just don't know when.
Right.
I've often said, man, I wish I had some real-time satellite footage of what's going on.
Yeah. Especially with this Skynet, I don't know if that's able to take pictures or if is it just for cellular?
Are you talking about
The Elon Musk
the
one,
Elon's? I'm not even.
Starlink.
I don't even
I'm
know.
sorry,
I know you said Skynet.
Starlink.
I was
Starlink, yeah.
Skynet, that's from the Terminator
I was
movie.
about to say that's the
Oh.
Terminator. We got Skynet over here. And Arnold's gonna bust through the door.
Yeah,
You back with the chopper.
I'll be back.
I remember when he first started in the movies. So knock it off.
He was following him when he was bodybuilding.
That's right. I remember him on Venice Beach.
Oh man. So what do we need to get? I've been asked this too. What does it take for us to involve a state or a federal agency with? Because I know we're limited in some resources that the state and the feds have at their disposal. What does it take for us to involve them?
Really, it's just requesting assistance.
I know with the state we got to go through the DA's office.
Yes. For the TBI or the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. For the most part, going through the DA's office would be the way to request that. Now, the TBI does have original jurisdiction on a few things, but you're right. For the most part, we do have to request it through the DA's office. Now, we do have local FBI agents out of the Columbia field office that, I have their numbers and we'll call them quite regularly. And it really just depends case by case basis on if they will look into this, or they're like, well, it doesn't really meet our threshold to be able to look into it. So that's more of a case by case thing, but it's just reaching out to them and asking, hey, we need help. Can you help us?
Yeah. When I met the new director, Cash Patel, in Nashville a few months ago, that was his idea of vamping up the manpower, the boots on the ground, is to get all the people that are just sitting in the Hoover building and other large offices that are just sitting not doing anything, getting them out on the ground and helping local law enforcement. That's something he was very vocal about in that meeting, which I'm all for it. I mean, we need the help. And if you're not working with people that has more than what we have, because I don't know what their budget is. I know what my budget is, but I don't know what their budget is. I would say they can get anything that we need.
It's in the millions.
Have you seen?
Billions.
Have you seen an improvement with the federal agencies since the new presidential administration has taken over?
We haven't had as many dealings with federal agencies since the new administration has taken over, but I will say within the last few years, we have seen an uptick with local agents, reaching out, actually responding when we ask for assistance, and it's getting more and more every day where we can rely on them to actually help us.
And the last few times, I think they've reached out to us to help them.
Yes, and
Really?
it's not always one way. I believe the last thing we did is they reached out to us to assist them with a kind of knock and talk search warrant type thing. There was a federal case.
When they need some heavy lifting. That's what you're
for
saying.
child pornography.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When they need door busters and it's like I always said, they never called the Marines for peacekeeping operations. They called
Right.
the Marines when they want places burned up and people killed. It's the same thing with us, right? When they want somebody to kick in the door and rough some people up, they call us.
I guess
I don't know about
I don't know about the roughing people up, but
Well, we got Dennis Cody.
Yeah,
I
we do
mean,
have Dennis
yeah, we just
Yeah.
get him started.
Yeah, I just stay behind it.
And my personal office, has actually been rented out to the FBI a few times for them to interview some victims and some witnesses. Since they didn't have a local office to go to, they reached out to me. It's like, hey, we got someone we need to talk to in private. Can we use your office? Of course.
Let's talk a little bit about what the public can do to help us, victims. I mean, again, people ask me all the time, what can I do to help y'all? And I always just say, observe and report for the most part. But victims, I mean, what can they do? So if you've had some property stolen, well, let's before we get to that, let's talk a little bit about domestic violence, because that was one of the topics that I wanted to talk a little bit about. You brought some numbers with you.
I did.
It seems like, which we always have a spike in domestic violence in the summertime. I mean, it's a guarantee. And then it'll die off in late summer and fall, and it'll pick back up around the holidays. It's a guarantee. But it just seems like here lately, we've been overwhelmed with them. I mean, this morning's, how many reports did we have? Probably 20 reports in that stack, and
Oh yeah.
a third of them seemed like they were domestic or domestic related.
Yep. Yeah.
So, I know you said summer. What I've got right now is from January of this year until now. Up until now, from January, we've had 50 reported domestic violence incidents. Out of those 50 reported, there were actually 35 reports taken. Sometimes when a deputy responds to a scene, it's not actually a domestic violence situation, and it's something that doesn't need a report. And of those 35 reports, 26 arrests were made.
Mm-hmm.
Now going.
And that's just that's just domestics out in the county.
Yes,
that doesn't
in the
include,
county.
because I put out a monthly report. It's called the At a Glance report, and it breaks down some of our calls, and I also get the total combined county calls with that, and it talks about the domestics and how many, and it's probably close to double that number.
And to go with the summer, out of these arrests made, out of the 26, 12 of them have been in the summer.
So those are domestics that were dispatched as domestics, and when we got there, it was confirmed it was a domestic.
Confirmed a domestic. A report was taken, and well, you see all of these that are highlighted. A arrest was made.
Mm-hmm. Because the report that I put out every month, I think we're averaging around 20 something calls a month that are domestic related. Might not be a domestic situation when we get there, but it's dispatched as a possible domestic type situation. But it just seems like that we've been overwhelmed here lately with them. What was the one that I'm thinking of that I saw the report on this morning? Where the guy didn't the guy try to kill or threaten to kill his wife, and then said he was going to kill himself? Do you remember seeing that report?
Was it from this morning?
I think it was.
Was it the one where she threw the gun up on the roof?
No, I don't think so. It was there were some pictures attached of the guy that looked like he had some injuries and the woman had some injuries.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. She was what, 20?
Yeah, they were in their 20s.
Yeah.
They were a young couple.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's actually a stat that we have in the county here, is most of the victims that seek help through the shelter, they're between the ages of 18 and 30. The vast majority.
Well, it's definitely changed. I can remember years ago, and I know, Deal, you can too. How long did you work patrol before?
Yes, sir.
Did I
actually started in the jail.
You did?
Yes, I did.
Right on.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And then
What year was that?
You really want me to say?
No.
2021.
It was probably before Garrett was born.
I guarantee it.
Yeah.
What year were you born?
92.
Oh, absolutely.
That's when I started. That's when I started in law enforcement. 92. That's when I started in the jail.
It was,
So I can say that how old people say, boy, when I started this, you wasn't even thought of. I
Yeah.
can say that.
yes, you can.
I didn't know that. Um, so if you're a victim of a crime, what's the number one thing that you can do to help us help you? Let's break it down. What's number 1, 2, and 3?
So before a crime even occurs, I would really recommend every piece of equipment you have, guns, anything that has a serial number, write that serial number down. Have it recorded somewhere. Maybe put it in your safe, just somewhere where you can get to it.
Why is that important?
So when something's stolen and there's multiple of those things that are made, how are we going to differentiate yours from the other 100,000 that are out in the wild?
Like the Kubota tractor you were talking about earlier. If it's a 2024, how many did they make? 30,000 of them. So you say, oh, it's a Kubota tractor of 24 and it's this model. Yeah, there's a good chance that, one of the equipment manufacturers here sold
But
maybe 50 or 100.
But also, if you don't have the VIN number or serial number, we can't put it in NCIC. And if it's found on a trailer in Birmingham 2 days later,
They're not going to know.
it's not going to show up in the system as being stolen, right?
Right.
Correct, because when you put something into NCIC, it's nationwide.
Mm-hmm.
So like you said, someone pulls it over in California the next day, it's going to pop that it's stolen.
Right. Same thing with a gun. If you have the serial number, and we can put it in NCIC, if it's found 10 years later in the back seat of a car on the interstate, then it'll show up.
That's
Show
true.
up to stone and it'll come back to you.
And I know that because the pistol that I carry, it's a first generation Glock 40 caliber. It's the one that I carry on my vest. Was given to me when I left the task force as like a severance thing, and it was stolen out of Atlanta, Georgia, and it was in the back floorboard of a car that I had stopped. And so, long story short, I got them out and I got up there and I found the gun. I secured it and called, and it was stolen out of Georgia. So, but it was an old case. It was probably 6 or 8 years old back then, because like I said, it was a first generation Glock. I don't remember when they first made that. First year they made the 40, the 19, I think it was the Glock 19.
Was that 92?
Maybe, I don't know.
93? Right around there.
Yeah.
Early 90s, late 80s.
Probably
Because
so.
The first
I
generation.
actually started with a wheel gun.
Yeah, yes.
So, revolver for those
The boat anchor.
who've never seen one.
So, so anyway, it when we ran the numbers on it, it come back that it was stolen out of Atlanta, Georgia. Well, then I talked to the investigator at the department where it was reported, and the guy that reported it signed a statement saying he didn't want it back because I guess his insurance, his homeowner's insurance or something, had already paid for it, and blah 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 blah. So they took it out of NCIC where it was no longer statement, and I got all the paperwork sent to me. So we issued it out to myself, and I carried it for a backup. And then when I left, they let me keep it. But
nice.
So I can tell you, NCI, that getting a serial number for your guns and having them in case they get stolen is really important.
I got called
Absolutely.
a couple weeks back from Miami-Dade in Florida. Had recovered a firearm that was reported stolen in Lawrence County in 2004, 2005.
Perfect example.
And I got a call about 6-8 months ago in regards to a motorcycle that was recovered in Florida that was stolen from here.
Yeah.
And
So
he
VIN
had-
numbers,
he had
serial
the VIN
numbers.
The VIN numbers are a godsend.
You got to have them. You got to have them for them to go in NCIC where they can be seen if it's stopped or found somewhere else. What else can people do?
I mean, you can engrave your name in them all day long, which will help us locally. But if somebody, let's say somebody steals all your wrenches and has, Brown's name all over them, if they take them to Alabama and sell them at a flea market, nobody's going to know who Brown is. It is a good thing for locally here, because if we come upon them, we're going to say, oh, Brown, yeah, 3 months ago he had a whole bunch of tools stolen. This is probably one of them. That's really only good for here.
Yeah.
We the VIN numbers are fantastic nationwide, but as far as hand tools and stuff like that, since they're not issued VIN numbers, putting your name on it's probably the best thing you can do.
Giving us good descriptions.
Yeah,
Yes,
and good descriptions.
If you got if you can get us a vehicle description of a possible suspect, make year model. That's handy. Tag number is even better, or a partial tag number is even better.
This might sound silly, but give us your correct address and your correct phone number so we can actually make contact with you.
Yes.
You know, there's several reports we have where the phone number's not right and the address isn't right.
And if you don't have voicemail and you see a number come across that's blocked, take the chance and pick it up because it's probably one of us calling from the office.
Gotcha.
If you've made a report in the last couple of days. So,
All right, guys, we're out of time. Thanks for joining me.
no, thank
Appreciate
you.
all your hard work and your help.
It's a pleasure.
Always.
What do y'all need from me? Anything?
No, sir.
Raise? Couple
I
days
mean,
off?
I'm not
Okay.
gonna tell you no.
I'm not going to argue with you about
All
that.
right, we got to go. We're out of time. Thanks again. We'll see you in a week or two.